So, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the After Hours podcast. This is a very unique and special episode, to say the least. We're focusing on youth advocacy today, and we actually have some of our AHF employees' kids here to speak from their perspective of how they feel about advocacy and kind of what you guys are experiencing in your everyday lives. So, welcome Andrew and Sasha to the show. Welcome, guys.
Well, it's nice being here. Um, yeah,
Thank you for having us.
yeah.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, Andrew, let us know how old you are and what school you go to and what year you're in.
Well, my name is Andrew. I am 17, almost 18, and I go to McKinley Technology High School, that is in DC, Washington, DC. And my father is an advocate, and that's what he does for a living.
And Sasha, what about you?
I'm 18. I'm actually going to college next year. I'm going to Ohio University to study early childhood education. I'm very excited, and my mom has been working with advocacy like my entire childhood, so I'm very excited to be able to talk about it today.
So because both of your parents are in advocacy, obviously you guys have been involved in it pretty much your whole life. So what is the first time you remember doing something that was advocacy driven and at what age?
So I remember I was like 6 years old. It was my first Pride Parade, and so I it was like really cool to like be there that young and like to see how like much it means to people, and like going like being in the parade and being on the float and then going to it afterwards and like just being there was like a really cool experience that I will definitely remember like for a lifetime.
Wow.
As for me, my dad, I currently moved in with my dad. Um, and I went to it was an AIDS healthcare walk. I think it was like an event that was going on as a walk, and I definitely saw a different people that I was not used to at the time because I used to be living in a different space. And I thought it was interesting. At first, I was kind of afraid because I felt like I did not fit in, but eventually I kind of eased into things and I felt much more comfortable. And I actually really like being around that kind of space.
Hmm. So you mentioned fitting in. So from you guys' perspectives, like I said, you guys are the youth at this point. What does fitting in mean to you? Andrew, you mentioned it, so go ahead.
Fitting in is basically making people happy. Obviously, you can't do that all the time because people will disagree with you on specific things, and that's what majorly makes you able to fit in with what other people want to think. And sometimes you just kind of have to adjust to the specific things that people like and don't like. But sometimes it is difficult, especially when things are not quite right. And sometimes people might have their specific views, but those specific views might be kind of incorrect and unjust to a specific group of people. And that happens quite often. And sometimes you gotta kind of advocate for the fact that you gotta make sure to remind these people that what they're saying is wrong.
Sasha, what do you think?
So for me, like recently, I've just kind of stopped trying to like fit in. I've just tried to like fit into my perspective and like what I think is right and like my mindset. So like if someone doesn't like me for what I'm wearing or who I am, that's their own problem. So I want to be who I want to be and what's right for me.
I think it's beautiful that you guys have so much confidence. You know, the world can be a mean place. So I think that's beautiful what you guys said. Um, so what are the three most important advocacy issues you think our leaders should be addressing right now? And that can be anything from A to Z.
For me, I definitely think, well, I'll just go in order. Reproductive rights and health, racism, and climate change and like climate control and stuff like that. I think those are the three most important things that are definitely affecting us and the youth. Like with climate control, like and climate change, that's like our world that we're living in. And if it goes down, then we're like stuck and like screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I agree with the racial factor of it because that kind of goes into things like jobs, also as well as medicine, because specific groups are kind of marginalized and put into a spot that they're not able to gain the things that they actually need, and for that reason, populations suffer because of that.
Hmm. So, what should those of us who do advocacy for a living do to get more young people at your age involved in important advocacy issues that you just mentioned?
I would personally say that, advocacy, it depends on who you ask or what it is. One person might have a different view on it, but it's really important to kind of do things so that children kind of have an incentive to do that. Kind of, make sure to put it in a terms that it can be quite understandable to them, but in a way kind of, enjoyable and that they feel that they have accomplished something. That can be something as simple as going out for like a protest. So that's one of the most simple things you can do. And, just starting them early is quite important because, that way they build a kind of like that feel of accomplishment and feel like they're doing something that can affect the other people around them.
I also feel like social media is a big way to reach out just because so many people use it and it's a great way to reach out to people all across the country and world even. So I feel like that's a great way to like get things out and even like talking it like not making them feel like stupid. So like using smaller words was like really helpful for me like when I was like on social media and like simple terms was really helpful for me.
So, at this point in time, you're 18, you're 17, correct? So, you guys have kind of lived in a world where there's just been like constant, turmoil, or there's like racism going on. The summer of 2020 was crazy with George Floyd, climate change, and protecting the environment. There's so many different things happening within the short span of you guys' lives at this point. How do you guys feel day to day?
It's very stressful because like I know one day I do want to have children like that and I want to be a teacher and I want to work with those children and I'm worried about their future and what it's going to look like. Like that's very scary. Like I want my kids to grow up how I grew up and I always thought I was safe. I didn't have to worry about certain things. But like now I like as I've grown up, like there's just certain things I have to worry about more and it's even worse now and I don't want that for the future generations.
I would also agree, as well as kind of people becoming desensitized. Things kind of happen right after each other, and people are just it's kind of like a cycle of people, making a big deal about it. Things are shown in the news, and even if advocacy and all this, reaching out to kind of address the problems that's happening, it's just this constant cycle of making a big deal, covering it, and then things just disappear until another bad thing happens. And people are becoming desensitized that way, and no change is really being made. It's mostly just people not necessarily complaining, but putting out the fact that these problems are still here and we still haven't done anything about it.
How do you feel about the older generation? And do you think that they understand what you guys are going through right now and how it's really an emotional toll for you guys at such a young age?
I don't think they truly understand because like this is like not as big of a deal, but like when they're like, oh, like during my like when I was a kid, like I didn't have these resources you have, but it's just such a different time. Like they didn't have to go through the things that we go through, so it's very different and it's not a fair like what's the word like judgment?
Comparison?
Yeah. So I just feel like they don't understand certain things about that, and it's like really frustrating because like these are the things that affect our lives and our future like especially with like older generations like they are like they don't have to worry about certain things anymore that we do like how they're growing up because they're done growing up I guess and like how their lives are going to be affected and like the way they learn and stuff.
Yeah, I certainly agree. But it's also important to remember that they might have gone through their own, problems and things like that. That they face things as well. It's just that their opinions and specific things is not definitely wrong. It's just like, it can be quite outdated because those things are not issues that are going on right now. Maybe they are going on right now, but not in the same way that they were facing them at the time. But it's also good to remember that, the older generations in most cases, I'm saying this happens in the majority of the time, they just want what's best for us. And they're just trying their best to kind of provide us with the resources that they can provide us with. And, we gotta be grateful for that for sure.
You better advocate for your parents. That was beautiful. So, what do you guys feel at this point in time is the most important advocacy issue in school?
So I personally went to a very like I would say liberal and very open high school. So if you had something to talk about, anyone was ready to listen, whether it be a student, a teacher, or administration. Like they were very open about it and they were ready to hear you with whatever you had to talk about. Like there is just like certain issues that I feel like this is like normal for any high school student, but nothing like drastically like life changing, I feel like.
I would probably say it's important to discuss sexual health. It may make sometimes it makes people uncomfortable because it's kind of even to this day it's kind of taboo, kind of talking about it right now. And even at school, things like that should be kind of covered because something that might be talked about in school might make it seem that everybody might be different, and you might not feel comfortable with somebody else's actions or beliefs or things like that. But you also got to support them because they're still people, and even if they're much different than you, it's important to kind of include them because you shouldn't just put people aside just because they're much different than you are.
I think that's a great segue though, because how do you guys feel about don't say gay bills? I mean, Andrew, you're in DC, so you're in a blue state, it's more liberal. But Sasha, you're in Ohio, and it's one of the red states. So there's some don't say gay legislation that's already been passed in your state. So how do you guys feel about it?
So personally for me, I do want to be a teacher and that's very frustrating for me to not be able to talk about that in schools because like you just like those are just things that need to be talked about. Like this shouldn't be such a like taboo thing where it needs to be legally like banned. Like it's just how people are and who they love and those things shouldn't be banned. That should just be life, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It's because majority of the issue is that, people are commonly uncomfortable because people might be different, and that's what the majority of the problem is because they are different. They kind of use kind of a way to force them to conform to being what is called normal, obviously that being straight, and that shouldn't be something that is kind of like a law or kind of place like the law of the place. And I think it's quite unnecessary, and if anything, I think it should be more inclusive because maybe even in school environments that can be more helpful and making things more comfortable for students because if they're more comfortable in the space they're learning, obviously they're going to do better in the things they have to do at school.
So what do you think the potential like mental health effects can be if you have someone, who has two dads or two moms and they can't fully express themselves or their home lives in school, which should be a safe space? What do you think that can do to their mental health as a kid?
I feel like it's definitely gonna take a toll on like how they like see themselves and how they see their life and definitely like it's just gonna make them uncomfortable as who they are or their family and that I don't feel like you should like anyone should be uncomfortable with who their family is.
Personally, as a person with two fathers, I kind of can I kind of share a feeling with that because at first I was really uncomfortable at discussing, me having two dads, and I was, in a sense, I was embarrassed because I was forced to feel that way. And nowadays, it's not a big deal as I used to think it was. Like, I'm kind of proud because, it's different and it's not something that, everybody can say. And, obviously, I love my two fathers, and they just want to do what's best for me, and I'm really appreciative of this, of what they do for me. And I think that people who think otherwise, you know, need to expand their opinions and be more open-minded about this kind of things.
That was a very politically correct way of saying to stop being so dense. That was nice. Another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, though, is, there's been a lot of gun violence in schools, and schools are supposed to be safe spaces. So first, have you guys had any firsthand experience about schools being on lockdown or your school specifically being on lockdown or you having a bomb scare or a gun threat? And what's that been like?
So past recently this past year, we've had four modified lockdowns where class could go on, but you had to lock your room was locked, and it was very scary because I had never actually been in one before, and so it was very new to me. Like it was my last year in high school, it was my last semester in high school, and it was very nerve wracking because I'm like, it was, we didn't know what was going on. No one was telling us anything. My teacher wasn't even taking it seriously. She's like, oh, this is just a joke. It's not real. You guys don't need to do anything. While we're hearing other classrooms moving the desks, moving the chairs. Like, we can hear what's going on. And it was very scary. We're all texting each other and they're talking over the loudspeaker. And in some rooms, you can't hear it because it's just hard to hear. And it was very scary. I didn't know just not knowing what was going on was the worst part of it. And it was actually a kid in my class, and so it was a senior class, and so we get senior class shirts. And he did it twice. He threatened our school twice, and he's on the back of our shirts for our senior class. And that it was just like I don't. It's just like I just don't like it. It's just very uncomfortable. I don't know. I'd never met him before, but it was just like I don't understand the thought process of how like older generations in the government don't see how this is an actual problem and that needs to be addressed, and like they don't like talk to us enough about it to see that we're scared to go to school. Like, this is the place where I'm supposed to be safe. I should not be scared every day to go to class. Like, I remember that day, it was later in the day, the turned on and everyone in the hall stopped, and it was like the hair on the back of my neck stood up. It was just so terrifying.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on, I live in DC, and it was mostly bomb threats. We had a total of I think four, maybe six, quite a lot actually. And just to kind of add on to that, it's just that people were kind of desensitized, and they kind of didn't make a big deal about it, even though it was a real issue going on. And it happened multiple times, and we had to obviously exit the building and go to the field, which is the football field right outside our school. We kind of stayed there, and they generally they had cops and professionals come in and check the school out to see if there's anything dangerous in the school. And as time passed, people just didn't really care, and it is a problem because you never know if a threat could actually be a threat, like an actual threat. There might be a bomb in the school. Nobody knows. And in regarding to gun laws, this should have been something that should have been addressed a long time ago. Um, there, personally, I don't think there's a necessity for you to be carrying around a gun. I think you already have cops for those kind of things. And even if you're home, you do not need a full automatic rifle. If at most maybe a handgun, but most of the time they'll be even more than necessary. Um, I think this is a problem that should be like really heavily looked upon right now, especially after multiple of the school shootings that have gone on like recently. And those kids' lives could have been saved if laws were put in place. It was really unnecessarily loss of life, and this could have been changed a long time ago.
No, I hear you guys. And I think in retrospect, like, I'm 26, so I am younger. I'm technically still a millennial. When I was in high school, we had two gun scares where we had to go on lockdown because there was a threat of someone shooting up our high school. But you guys have been through between 4 and 6 in a matter of a year, and that was my whole high school career. So just to see how much this has increased is definitely very alarming and traumatizing, as you were saying, Sasha, to walk into school and you're supposed to feel safe. This is a place where you come to learn and to receive education, and you're like on pins and needles the whole time. That's not a conducive environment for you to do so. So with that being said, I'm going to lead into our last question. Being that you guys still need to go to school and you guys still need educations, what do you feel schools need to do at a local level to make sure you guys feel safe? And what does the government need to do to ensure your safety in school?
So at my school, we already have security guards, but I feel like at an elementary level, that doesn't need to happen. Like, there should not be security guards with weapons in an elementary school. I feel like that's just ridiculous, personally. But at high school level, I understand just because like kids can bring in drugs and stuff like that, so that's understandable. But with the gun laws, I just feel like there need to be better background checks, and I know that's like federal, not local, but I just think there need to be stricter laws and stuff like that. And my school does a really good job about like talking about mental health and like being very open about it. And there's always safe spaces you can go. But I feel like it's definitely perspective and based on from school to school.
And I'm going to follow up with a question to you, Sasha. So you said you wanted to be a teacher. So how do you feel about becoming a teacher in the state that this country's in?
Oh, it's definitely terrifying. When the Texas shooting happened, I almost thought about changing my major just because I was genuinely so scared. And it wasn't it wasn't a about me situation. I was worried for the children, and I just know the toll that would take on you as a teacher, like losing a child from a school shooting that you is happening right in front of you. That would just be awful, and I can't even fathom it.
Andrew, how do you feel about what at the local level and at the government level should be done around ensuring kids' safety at school?
Mental health is quite important. Majority of the cases where kids are, kind of pushed to do things that they definitely regret later. Sometimes, they take their own lives at the end of this incident. It's really important to, kind of not like lower the standards on how we look at mental health. Mental health is something that a lot of people just kind of look at and, recognize, but don't understand how really important it is. Because mental health can lead to a lot of, it can lead to issues after issues after issues, and it just starts at that one specific point. Um, Also, like agreeing to what she said, it's not necessary to have guards with weapons and things like that in elementary school, but in high school that might be different. Obviously, in elementary school, maybe. But it is important to, keep maybe make things a little bit more stricter of what, is allowed to be brought into school, but still kind of keep some open-mindedness of, maybe other things that people might see as dangerous, but that's not necessarily are, that might be for religious reasons, maybe different cultural background and things like that. And that also adds on to clothing. Obviously there's stereotypes and things like that, obviously, and those are quite common. And people tend to stereotype people in the way they dress or the way they talk or just how they look like. And that kind of tends to play a big role in how people see you as a threat or how much people see you much as a threat. You know, because obviously a person of color is seen as more dangerous than a white person, and it's not necessarily something that should be a thing, but it just seems to be.
Well, I have to say thank you to you both for coming on the podcast and expressing your thoughts and being so transparent. This was fantastic. I want to say congratulations for getting into college and congratulations to you for being a lover of science. That's a big deal. And I'm excited to hear and see what you guys are going to do in the future and how you're going to change this world. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.